Hi everyone, and welcome to SAMA, a program which invites an expert to talk about their area of expertise. This week we are delighted to have Brian Peskin as our guest expert to talk about properly calibrated oils, fish oils, and properly formulated oils. Brian is a theoretical research scientist specializing in lipids-based pharmacognosy, a class of drug derived from plant-based sources, especially seed oils. A notable benefit of this approach is the minimization and elimination of harmful side effects. That has to be good. He focuses specifically on the modulation of physiologically targeted essential fatty acids, EFAs, termed properly formulated oils, and the eicosanoid metabolites. So welcome to our show, Brian. It's fantastic to have you with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, now this has got a special interest for myself because it's plant-based oils as opposed to animal-based oils.
Yeah.
And I'm a vegetarian. But what is so wrong about animal-based oils and fats?
They don't have the numbers of the physiologic components we need. So there's two substances a human being can't make when it comes to lipids. One is called heparin omega-6, which is linoleic acid. The other is heparin omega-3, which is alpha linolenic acid. All it means is one has 2 double bonds, one has 3 double bonds. What you need to understand is we have to get these from food. We can't make them. Those are the two fats your body can't make. They can make GLA, EPA, DHA, all the stuff in fish oil your body makes. So the parent forms are what we must get from food because we can't make them. The derivatives are what our body makes from the parents as needed. And what misled everyone in science, especially the physicians and the whole health industry, was we need very, very few derivatives. So the DHA EPA numbers we need are minuscule compared to what's being prescribed and what's being offered in the fish oil capsule. So the plant-based, humans are made to eat plants. We can get them from the plants, or nuts and seeds like flax oil, sunflower oil, evening primrose oil. I like using a multitude of oils in case anyone has any sensitivity to one particular one. But these are the brick and mortar, John, of every cell. And in a cell, we have 100 trillion. 100 trillion. It's what's called the bilipid membrane. So every one of these 100 trillion cells has a membrane. It's half fat, half protein. There's virtually no carbohydrate in it. Of that half fat portion, 25 to 33% are the parent oils. They are the heparin omega-6, heparin omega-3. There's virtually no EPA, no DHA, no fish oil in a cell membrane. So these oils, to start, are the brick and mortar of every cell. So if you're deficient in this, I don't care what the paint is on the house. If the house is ready to fall down, John, putting a fresh coat of paint is going to do nothing because there's no underlying structure. So this is the problem in human nutrition today. Too few are looking at the structure, the brick and mortar of what makes up every cell, and that's where I live.
You bandied about a few technical terms. Now, the parent oil, it's from the parent oil that other derivatives are sourced from. Is that correct? Is my understanding right?
So, for example, EPA, DHA, those are the fish oil components. Any marine oil, I don't care if it's an oyster, a mollusk, a squid, it's irrelevant. Krill, marine oil. DHA, EPA are the active components of that. That is all made from parent omega-3. Okay, and what they tell you is, well, we don't convert well. Everybody has a conversion problem because it's, quote, slow. Anybody see the word slow? That's your engineering guy. That's called a time constant. As time goes to infinity, it's all converted. So the comment isn't that it's slow. The comment is there's next to nothing. And what fooled everyone for decades was they didn't have the high resolution chromatography and the quantitative analysis to tell how much should be made from the parents. The answer is next to nothing. The National Institutes of Health and the U.S. Department of Agriculture measured it. And the number, nobody ever asks, how much DHA, EPA does a human brain need? You ever seen anybody address that or even ask the question? No.
No.
They just say you need tons of it, tons of it, tons of it. The brain used 7.2 milligrams. Milligrams. Now take a look at what the capsule is that you're taking for a supplement. Anybody out there taking fish oil supplements, you have 1,000 milligram capsule is typical. Out of that thousands, probably 60% is DHA, EPA. That's 600 milligrams. The brain is using 7, double it. It's okay, the eyes use some, the brain uses some, double the number. I'm a reasonable guy, double it. That's 14. 14 compared to 600. And that's only in 1,000 milligrams. Most people are taking, they're telling them 3 to 4 grams. The average person taking fish oil, John, is overdosing by 20 to 500-fold per day. And to put that in perspective, take 50 aspirin and call me in the morning. Don't do it. I'm being facetious. Don't do that. You'll die. You will bleed to death. So this is what people are being told to do every day, and it's horrible. It's based on no science whatsoever except omega-6 is bad, we're overdosed on it. You take the fish oil and it displaces that and it makes you better. That's the only science these guys have. It's horrible. So the parent oils from the plants are critical. They make the brick and mortar, and we'll talk about what else they do because it's a lot. But they are the brick and mortar of every one of your 100 trillion cells.
But I wonder about, there's communities that their main diet is fish. Like the obvious
There's
one.
communities that have no fish. There's actually 5 or 6. The Hunzas, for example, they're landlocked. They can have no fish, no marine-based food at all. And there's no problems. There's no neurologic problems. There's no visual acuity problems. There's no brain problems. There's none of the problems we're led to believe. So you don't need any fish at all. Not saying you can't have it. And remember, fish oil is a processed food, so that's not natural. You can have fish because it's not processed and concentrated with the oils, but there's plenty of communities that have no fish whatsoever, and they're just fine.
Is there a danger in eating fish? Because then you become...
Well, there's toxins in fish. If you don't get a wild fish, you get farm raised, there's all kinds of toxins in it. There's preservatives, there's heavy metals in it. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in the oceans today. So you can eat fish, but I would make sure it's wild and not farmed.
Right. So the natural oils that are in the fish won't harm you because that's, you'll be overdosing yourself.
Let me tell you what fish oil is. Think about it. Antifreeze for a fish. Fish live in cold waters, okay? Now, Dr. Rowan, who co-wrote PEO Solution with me, showed me a superb article. Said, Brian, would you expect there to be less DHA, EPA in a warmer water fish than a cold water fish? I go, of course, because fish oil turns rancid at room temperature. So he goes, you're right. Sends me an article. There is 14 times less EPA, DHA in a warm water fish at 70 degrees than a cold water fish at 30 degrees, okay? 14 times less. Now, what's our body temperature? 98.6 Fahrenheit. DHA, EPA spontaneously turns rancid at that temperature. That's why you walk in a supermarket by the fish section and it smells. That is rancidity. That is the fish going bad. So this is what's happening in every fish capsule. The minute you take it, it's going bad. And you go, Brian, it can't be going all bad because we have it in us. We do have natural antioxidants. But the problem is by taking this, what's called a suprapharmacologic overdose of that DHA, EPA, all the antioxidants that are supposed to be in one place now go spiraling down to save you from this overdose and try to stop the oxidation there. And now there's a shortage elsewhere. So it's a horrific state of affairs if anybody would care to look at the science. And the problem is too few of us are. The journal articles come out, and I'll tell you in a minute, because all the articles in 2018, 2017 are failure after failure after failure of fish oil. It does not work in anything. It's wishful thinking. And it took 15 to 20 years for that industry to convince people to buy it. I jokingly tell everybody, John, if I have tons of money and tons of time, I can convince you to cut your arm off. It's much better to be one-armed. And just give me $100 million in 20 years, and I'll convince a ton of people to do it. Yeah. Same thing. Where do you think the whole thing came from? Came from fish that were spoiled that they couldn't sell to the good restaurant. So what do I do with this? I juice it and I have fish oil. That's how it started. And I was around at different seminars, trade shows. They couldn't sell the stuff. They couldn't give it away. The wholesalers didn't want it because people wouldn't buy it. But because people are so desperate, they're grasping at straws. And this is now heralded as the big miracle. And it's nonsense. There's no science whatsoever to support anything. And Cochrane, which is the biggest reviewer of studies in the world, came out in 2018 saying fish oil does nothing for heart disease. Nothing. And this was their big thing. The other thing, John, is there's 3 companies selling fish oil. And then we're going to talk about what the parent oils do, because I don't want to harp on fish oil. I don't care about it. It was only because so many people would talk to me about it going, well, what about fish oil? And I'd say, are you a fish? Are you living in 30-degree water? No. So everything they're telling us, there's pharmaceutical companies that sell fish oil. There's 3 of them. Don't you think if there was any indication like heart disease, Alzheimer's, dry eye, macular degeneration, Alzheimer's, anything, they would have a fish oil drug for this? They don't, because they all fail. So you're delusional. Okay, that's the bottom line. A little later, I'll go over some more studies. But if anybody is taking fish oil, please bring it back. Please stop. It's actually a poison. It takes 18 weeks to get it out of your body. And again, you can look this up on your own. National Institutes of Health, United States Department of Agriculture, 7.2 milligrams, and that's in a big brain person. There's a distribution. That's on the higher end. So most people need less than that. But again, I'm conservative, so I'll give you the highest amount with a big brain person, and probably a 250-pound guy. It's a lot of women. There's a lot of kids. They're not 250 pounds, so it's based on weight, how much you use. It's the size of the organ, the tissue. Mm-hmm. So that's the number we use, 20 to 500 times physiological overdose. So that's it in a nutshell, why you don't want fish oil. One big thing, we're talking about heart disease. Article came out 2017. DHA lowers cardiac mitochondrial enzyme activity by replacing parent omega-6 in the phospholipidome. So what happens with fish oil is your body can't just get rid of it. It can't just go, hey, I don't want it. It shoves it into the place in the cell membrane where the parent omega-6 should be, and it displaces it and it doesn't work. That article was incredible. I saw one person referenced it. 50% less mitochondrial enzyme activity, which means you don't have the energy to keep your heart pumping. It's down by half. And they're saying this stuff is great for heart disease. It's unbelievable to me. Absolutely unbelievable. So I'm sure you have a pile of questions. Ask me about the plant-based oils that are...
It's like the story of the more doctors smoke Marlboro than any other brand. Like many other people, I was brought up on halibut liver oil capsules, and
horrible.
Gosh.
Cod liver oil, any fish oil, it's the same thing. Any marine oil is horrible, and if you taste it, you'll want to throw up. So that's step one. Nature's not stupid. It gives us a taste that's horrific for things that are not good for us. Like we've had people in the States saying, grind up the rinds of watermelon, cantaloupe, because they're bitter and you won't eat them on your own, but there's so much nutrition in there, grind them up with this machine and put it in to make a smoothie out of it. What kind of an imbecile would listen to that and go, brilliant? I'm going to take a thing that's pretty much poisonous to me because my taste says don't touch it. We're not made to be eating rinds. Not a human billy goat. We're not a cow. We don't have 4 stomachs. We don't regurgitate it. But people are so desperate today. That's why I get passionate about this, and I get very upset with people misleading people with no science. So one thing, anybody listening, if anybody tells you anything, what you should ask is, sir, doctor, health nutrition person, give me the metabolic pathway that this works on. How the heck does it work? Witchcraft is not allowed. Magic is not allowed. And I don't know what it does is not allowed either. You have to give a specific scientific metabolic pathway. How the heck does it work? And if you start doing that, oh, doctors will just look at you, they'll look, their eyes will glaze over because nobody's ever asked them. You need to start asking very, very smart questions, or you're going to die, and you're going to die in a bad way. And we're not living longer today in America. We're living shorter. They're saying it's because of the opioid crisis. No. People in their 40s are getting heart attacks. People in their 40s are getting dementia. We are getting it. And it's because the processed food. So back to the parent oils. The reason that they adulterate them, this is why we're not getting enough. We're overdosed on omega-6. We're overdosed on it. You are overdosed on it. You're overdosed on the adulterated parent omega-6. And the reason they have to adulterate it, and that means a trans fat into a esterified fat, something to stop the oxygen transferring so it doesn't go bad, is because you can't have bagels, pasta, any kind of frozen food, any kind of fresh food, smelling like fish that's gone bad. So that's why the food processors have to adulterate it. The problem is we have 100 trillion cells, goes in there, doesn't work. And what's the first thing that happens? Impaired oxygen transfer. Otto Warburg, greatest biochemist, physiologist of the 20th century, MD, PhD, Nobel Prize winner, absolutely brilliant, conclusively showed the reason we get cancer is because lack of cellular oxygen. One prime cause. He called it the prime cause of cancer. It was verified in America in the 40s, absolutely. Question is, why is that happening and how the heck do you fix it? Well, the reason why is because of food processors. Cancer was virtually non-existent in the early 1900s, and it was tracked. 5%. Heart disease, 5%. The inventor of the EKG was over in America in the 20s. He was told, go back home. We don't have heart disease here. And we didn't. And what people say, oh, they didn't measure it. Yeah, they did. I live in Houston. We have the Houston Academy of Medicine, one of the top 10 medical libraries in America. 300 medical volumes, 300,000, okay? You wouldn't believe what's in there. I saw the Lancet, the world's premier medical journal, going back to 1850. Everything is categorized, everything is talked about, and we get misled. It didn't exist, did not exist. The way you get the oxygenation, the parent oils. That's the properly formulated oil combination, and it's in the omega-6 series that oxygenates. There was one major article about it, 1976, Dr. Campbell, looking at cystic fibrosis, which is lack of cellular oxygen. He talked about needing more of the parent omega-6. Nobody picked up on it. This is the problem in medicine. There's no building on the past. I'm an engineer by training, and there's great shows like on Discovery. I don't know if you get it there, but we get it here, and it's called Impossible Engineering. And all they do is talk about the brilliant engineer of 1970 relied on the results of the brilliant engineers of 1930 who took their results from the geniuses of 1880. You never hear that in medicine. It's like, I'm the genius. There is nobody else. And this is why they go round and round in a circle. They get nowhere. They get nowhere. It's tragic. And it's all because they're not looking at the lipids, what make the cell membrane. And that's key, John. Absolutely key.
Is it only marine fish? Well, marine fish, there's not many other types of fish, are there? Is it marine animals that have this, the oils which are not healthy, or is it all cold-blooded reptiles or other?
Anything, well, definitely the sea, yes, because the sea is going to be very, very cold. The cold-blooded reptiles are still in the air here, so they'll be the temperature, but they're not going to be getting down to, I mean, they're going to be vacillating. They don't, as far, I haven't looked at them because we're not eating them. I really don't care. I look at food, so the reptiles aren't of any real concern to me what they have. Okay. But because they vacillate so much, I would extremely doubt they have much DPA, EHA. Now, we do need some. Our brain is probably 30 or 40 or 50% DHA EPA. But it's taken a lot of time to form as a baby, and the half-life of these oils, once they're in there, is 2.5 years.
Wow.
So the same molecule of DHA, believe it or not, stays in the brain. That's why you need so little, 2.5 years. Now, what does that imply? That implies you have the antioxidants to stay there in the brain. You won't if you're taking fish oil that's going rancid in the bloodstream. Now that protective antioxidant in the brain is going in the bloodstream to protect this poison you just took. Now you're getting rancid brain fats. What do you think that gives you? Alzheimer's, dementia. It's all nutrient flow. It has nothing to do with beta amyloid. That's an effect. The beta amyloid is a protein. Remember I told you half the membrane is protein, half is fat. So when your membrane's falling apart because the parent omega-6, parent omega-3 aren't there, they're defective, the protein leaks out. That's all beta amyloid is. You better fix the cell membrane or you're not going to fix anything. And there never used to be dementia and Alzheimer's like this. Never, never. You'd have the occasional one. So it's just everything is an epidemic today in America and goes around the world because everybody follows America. They think we know what we're doing. What I tell people is we know how to screw everything up real well, especially when it comes to your health and medical nutrition. We ruin the world. I spent a lot of time trying to be meticulous to make up for that, but not enough people know about my work. Biggest secret in the world, so I'm hoping you can help change that.
Well, let's see what we can do. It's a shame we can't get this.
Effects when you get the right parent oils in the cell membrane are staggering. Laser retention, skin that is smooth as the dickens, and the inner layer of your intima, the artery, is all parent omega-6. So anybody telling you fish oil, again, heart health, you just saw what it did in the mitochondrial enzymes, kills them by half. So it gives you no energy, it starves them of oxygen. The inner layer of the artery, it's all the parent omega-6. You take the fish oil, that's going to go. The skin, 100% parent omega-6. 100%. You want smooth skin, you better be getting these oils. Goes on and on and on. Laser retention, the brain. It's got 100 times more parent omega-6 than parent omega-3 in it. So the omega-3 is very minor in everything. Very, very minor. DHA, EPA, minor as heck. Now the brain is used, the eye is used, but again, very, very little per day is needed, and you can make it just fine. So I like having a little GLA in the formulation because what they'll say is, oh, remember, the conversion is slow. Well, that's called the delta-6 desaturase enzyme. And if you're diabetic, if you have family history of alcoholism, for example, if you're being treated for cancer with chemotherapy, radiation, that enzymatic pathway will be negatively affected. So if you take some GLA, and there's different oils that have GLA in it, you bypass that step. You just go to the next one, and then there's no problem at all. So I like having a formulation with GLA, but that's all you need. Parent omega-6, parent omega-3, GLA, you're home to the races. Your body will make everything. Forget the DHA, EPA, it's not needed in the least.
Now, a lot of oils change when they're heated. So,
Yep.
So I guess the oils that you're talking about, you have to take cold and not use them.
Best take them cold as a nutritional supplement. They're also in nuts. Everybody goes, walnuts are wonderful. Seventh-day Advents have long lives. It's the omega-3 in it. It's the omega-3 in it. Have you ever seen an analysis of what's in a walnut? It's 5 times more parent omega-6 than parent omega-3. And they give the credit to the omega-3. It's absolutely insane. Yeah, heating the oil. So all the cooking oils are the omega-6.
Yes.
So fast food, frying, they're all omega-6 oils. Nobody will ever cook with an omega-3 oil. Goes rancid much too fast. This is the parent omega-3. There's 3 double bonds. EPA has 5 double bonds. DHA has 6 double bonds. So the more double bonds, the more reactive. That means the less heat they can take. They go rancid like boom. Remember, DHA is rancid at room temperature. 70 degrees, it's bad. But the parent omega-6 can take some heat. But I still like for a supplement cold. Under 120 degrees. Doesn't need refrigeration. But under 120 degrees is fine for it. Good question.
Okay, so if you did the cooking, what kind of oil would you use? What oil
For
do you
cooking,
use?
you're best with either monounsaturated fats like an olive oil. Olive oil is a non-essential oil, by the way. It won't help you one bit. It just won't hurt you. So this whole Mediterranean diet thing. Remember, there's two things. I'm a life systems engineering scientist. How good something is, how bad something isn't. Let me repeat that. How good it is, how bad it isn't. They're completely different. Olive oil is a 0. A trans fat, an adulterated cooking oil, is a -20. So
Yes.
what would I rather have, a 0 or a -20? Of course, I'd rather have the 0. It's 20 points better. But it won't help me with any EFAs. Olive oil has about 7% parent omega oils in them. So it won't do much, but it won't hurt you. So
Okay, so it's
saturated fat is great also. Lard is wonderful to cook. Palm oil is wonderful to fry in. Ghee is it's an Indian clarified butter, wonderful to fry in. So deep frying, you want lard, you want ghee, you want palm oil, coconut oil. Sauteing can be butter. Sauteing can be olive oil. But those are the best ones. And a saturated fat will not cause you any problem at all. The next person that says saturated fats, they're idiots. They need to get their tail into a medical library and read some medical physiology. Here's my question for you. How much saturated fat is in a clogged artery? Between 0 and 100%. Give me the number because I know it to 0.1%. It's been measured with high-resolution chromatography in the Lancet, the world's premier medical journal. This was in 2000, by the way. It was measured. So it's not like we don't know. Guess the number of saturated fat in a clogged artery.
Brian, I don't need to guess because you've got a remarkable number of videos, educational videos on the internet. And I know you're going to, you had us with this 0, which is,
Yeah,
which is
you're right.
totally counter to
0.
What the
0. I ask cardiologists this, and I ask medical students this, and they just look at me and say, give me the number. When I first saw this, I thought, oh, the resolution was maybe 20 or 30%. Yes. So even though they said 0, it could have been 29.5%, and it would just miss it. No, it was 1/10%. So they can tell you 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 0. Oh. So how the heck is that? And if you know any biochemistry, just think about it. The saturated fat is saturated. It can't combine with anything. That's why you want it. That's why you want to cook with it. Can't combine with anything. That is what you want. Next question should be, okay, there's no saturated. What the heck is in the clogged artery? 86% adulterated parent omega-6, just what I told you. The oxidized parent omega-6 by the food processors to get long shelf life. That's the trans fat. They could call it 15 different things. Bottom line is it doesn't work. And it comes into the body oxidized. I want to make this very clear to everybody listening. Doesn't go bad in the body. The parent omega-6 goes bad from the food processor, and then we eat it, okay? Dr. Spiteler, one of Germany's top biochemists, wrote extensively about this, and I read his work. Comes in ready-made poison. Doesn't happen in the body. So we're fooled once again. Never ends.
So it's the processing of the parent omega-6. It's not the parent omega-6 itself.
Got it. Nope. It's the processing.
Gosh.
All foods have a preponderance of the parent omega-6 because nature knows we need a pile of it. And when you analyze it, it's 11-to-1. The body tissues and organs, we need 11 times more parent omega-6 than omega-3.
Okay.
11 times. Anybody telling you, oh, we get 20 times, oh, you don't. Nobody's eating 20 times more parent omega-6 than omega-3. It'd be impossible. There's omega-3 even in meats. Like I said, a grass-fed steak is 2-to-1 between parent omega-6 and parent omega-3. So you can get it from animals. But you got to be careful in that it's organic, it's unprocessed. That's why I tell people just take a supplement, which also has to be organic, unprocessed, and be done with it. Then you're okay. But yeah, animal-based proteins do have the parent omega-6 and parent omega-3 in it. Fish does too. It will have some parent omega-6. Not in the oil, there's none. But the fish itself will. But remember, the oil is a processed food, and there's no parent omega-6 or parent omega-3 in it. That's all strictly derivatives and other stuff that's not essential.
Gosh. Okay, so we've got walnuts. I guess almonds will be right up there with healthy oils.
Yeah, the nuts are fine. And some have saturated fat, monounsaturated fats. By the way, fat's the only thing that fills you up. What? Fat fills you up. The ketogenic diet's the big thing, right? They live on fat.
Yeah.
And you can do a test. I used to be in the bodybuilding thing, you know, when I was a
I was going to ask, because you cut quite a sharp figure.
Well, I used to do the bodybuilding stuff, but my test was, and I was doing what they said. I would eat the bagels every day. I would drink a ton of orange juice, and never got really the way I should have been from what I was doing and killing myself in the gym and working and everything. Yeah. And then I did a test. I took 6 egg whites, ate them. 10 minutes later, I'm starving. Then I took 6 egg whites with 2 yolks, you know, the next day, of course. Mm-hmm. I'm not starving. I'm full. The heck is this? And the more I researched, that's the only thing that fills you up. The best steaks, you know, you're a vegetarian, but I mean, for people that are eating meats, there's a lot of fat in there, and it fills them up. So for anything you get, I don't know if you can eat yogurt or cheese or anything, or if you're, but you want full fat everything. One thing to remember is fat-free is an industry code word to add sugar. So if they rip out the fat, they have to put something in that's going to be more carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is sugar. We have something called the diabetes epidemic in America and around the world now because people follow this. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. The oils also cut your cravings for carbohydrates. We have a lot of diabetics now. Everybody's becoming diabetic in America because their sweet tooth is on short circuit. So you put these oils in, you're craving the oils. You're not craving sweets. So all nature can do is, John, you didn't give me any of these oils. All I can do is make you hungry again and pray the next batch of food has some of the oils, but it doesn't. So it's eat, crave, eat, crave. This is the human billy goat syndrome in America. God. Then what do the nutritionists do? Oh, you're supposed to eat 6 to 8 times a day. Any jackass eating 6 to 8 times a day will be diabetic. Your pancreas is designed to spit out insulin twice. Read the textbook of medical physiology if you don't believe me. It's lunacy after lunacy after lunacy. They tell you the wrong thing to do. You do it, it doesn't work. Then they try and give an answer why it doesn't work and what you're supposed to do to fix it. And that's screwed up. They're turning everybody diabetic, and the proof is everybody in America is diabetic. Another 20 years, I think it'll be 100%. It's horrible.
Gosh.
So it's unbelievable here. It is unbelievable. It's going to bankrupt us. I don't know how we're not bankrupt yet. We are the most, I think the only other ones are in India because they're cooking in processed oils for everything. They're more diabetic than us. And it's the vegetarians, it's South Indian, but they're ruining themselves by cooking in the processed oils. Dr. Rowan went over there when he came back. He said, Brian, you're not going to believe this. All the oil they use is screwed up, adulterated, and everything they cook in, they're killing themselves. They're the most diabetic in the world. Southern India.
How can you tell if an oil is adulterated? I guess that'd be some which shall we buy.
If it's not organic, you go to the supermarket. If it doesn't say organic on it, don't take it. It's going to be adulterated.
But organic means it doesn't have pesticides, herbicides.
It means it's not chemically processed also. So organic is 2 things. Lack of a negative. Yes. I don't care if it has any more nutrients in it. I don't want the pesticides, the hormones, the steroids, just what you were about to say.
Those nutrients we can do without.
I don't want the additives. I don't want the additives, and I don't want chemical processing because that's how you make a trans fat. That's how you make an interesterified fat. That's how you make a preserved fat. It's all called chemical processing. Organic can't have that. So very important. Costs a lot of money, but you don't do it, you're going to be in deep trouble. I mean, I see people all the time. They're dropping dead in America in their 70s now, 60s, 70s. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That shouldn't be, but all over the place. And with first heart attacks, by the way, 1/3 you're dead. There were no outward signs. We couldn't tell anything. The guy looked wonderful. Heart attack, dead. 1/3. The reason you're dead is these oils. You're not getting them. It's as simple as that. Remember, 86% is clogged with the oxidized parent omega-6 from the adulterated food. These oils also make derivatives. Now, the first derivative is called PGE1. That is your body's #1 anti-inflammatory and vasodilator. So the first thing it does is it increases the artery width to get more blood flow. More blood flow is more nutrients, more oxygen. So that is critical. Anybody with arthritis, any kind of skin problems, it is your body's natural anti-inflammatory. And it is phenomenal. That's why we get expedited healing in all the patients that take these oils before their surgery. Also on the omega-6 side, prostaglandin, which is PGI2. That makes it where the platelets can't stick together, platelets can't stick to the artery wall, and it's also a vasodilator. What's on the omega-3 side? Nothing. Nothing. Omega-3 is extremely weak.
So let me understand this. If you've got a...
The only reason you really need it is, again, you need some 7.2 milligrams a day because it lasts 2.5 years in your brain. But for the parent omega-3, it is the brick and mortar in the cell.
Okay.
It's in there too.
For someone that's got...
Remember, it's 11-to-1 as far as the tissues go, but it's in there. So nature wants it in there for a reason. Don't try and fool Mother Nature. You're not going to win. And that's humans' problem. We tend to not work with nature. We think we're smarter, we're better. It's incredible. We lose every time. Every time we think we're smart. Oh, I'm going to make a food that doesn't go bad. That was where trans fats came from. Okay, that came out of Germany and different places to make it where the food doesn't go bad. So it's a noble thought. The problem is you're going to kill every person because the oxygen transfer is stopped. And Otto Warburg showed you get cancer spontaneously if 35% oxygen transfer over a sustained period of time. Could be intermittent. Doesn't have to be continuous. So if you have screwed up oils in the cell membrane, it can be down as much as 50%. So you can prove you hit that 35% decreased threshold. This is why everybody's getting cancer. Didn't used to exist anywhere. People go, where'd this come from? I'm an athlete. I eat okay. You think you eat okay. You don't because you don't know about the oils.
Sure.
And this is the problem. You didn't do anything. It's what you didn't do.
Right. Well, if someone has got arteries which have become blocked, I mean, everyone's been told...
One reverses the cloggage. This was shown in 1981 by a scientist, MD, in Germany. The PGE1, which is made from the GLA, so it's on the omega-6 derivatives, they call it a long-chain metabolite, that's the terminology, will dissolve the clog. Also, we got proof that these oils will dissolve even calcified plaque. I had one of the top radiologists in America, Dr. Robert Kagan, call me, he goes, Brian, one of my patients said you're taking something, and it's oxygen capsules. I don't know what the heck it is. But he goes, I've never seen hard plaque reversed in a patient that's a smoker. This guy's a smoker, and it reversed. And then later on, he found out the guy stopped taking the oils, measured him again, came back. So this is called cause and effect. But Dr. Kagan is a top radiologist. He was the chair of this for America in the physiologic sciences department area. So big name. And he measured it. Very high resolution CT slice.
Yes.
So it's not open to discussion. It's not open to estimate.
Sure.
You can see this and you can measure it.
Yeah.
He goes, he's never seen it in his entire career. So it was really cool. That's what I like. I'm a theoretical person, but I love having the experiment where it confirms the theory. The problem today is what these people say works is the opposite of what the science says. It's like, how do I have better skin taking fish oil? There's no fish oil in my skin. How? Is it a puppet? I mean, are there strings? How? How does it help my heart? There's no fish oil in the artery. How? You know, I'd love to hear an answer for this.
Yeah.
It can't. But you have delusional jackasses that just won't stop. I mean, That's the word, jackass. If you don't want to listen to science, there is something called science. If you want opinion, if you want emotions, be an artist. I'm not going to say a word. You like this stuff, I like that, I could care less. But when you're talking something that's going to kill somebody, and you don't have the basis to say it except you like this, you hope that, I got a big problem with that. They're killing people. And I take a lot of slack for this. I mean, I'm vilified on the internet. I've never been shown wrong in my science, but people hate my guts because I say fish oil is bad, and they're making a lot of money selling fish oil. So they hate me. Yeah.
So parent omega-6.
Pay the price for being right sometimes.
Yes, yes. So parent omega-6 is basically the linchpin to health. That's if you get
Yes,
organic.
that is the biggest problem in the world today, the adulteration of the omega-6. Now, a lot of people go, oh, Joanna Budwig had the omega-3 with the cottage cheese and la-di-da-di-da. In her day, it was more of a problem because they didn't have as much as the adulterated omega-6. So getting omega-3 was more of an issue because very few people would eat fish. You know, they just wouldn't get much. But today, unequivocally, it is the adulterated omega-6. That's the problem. Still need the parent omega-3, but if you don't address that parent omega-6 and get fully functional, organic, unprocessed, you are going to die. And I know everybody dies. You're not going to die well is what I mean.
Yeah.
You're supposed to just die pretty fast and pretty painlessly. Not with long-term cancer, not with long-term heart disease, not with long-term complications of diabetes where you're getting gangrene and getting your leg chopped off. We're not meant to have any of this. This is all man's doing, and it's so easy to fix if people listen. So I've got a website, and they can check out things, and I write now because I typically write for doctors. But my latest book with Dr. Rowan, who is a raw foods vegan, by the way, but our intersection is these oils. So I'm a carnivore. I eat less meats now after talking to Dr. Rowan and researching more of the oils. Yes. But our intersection's the only book ever because typically carnivores and vegetarians hate each other's guts. So we have a book together, and it's called PEO Solution. But I hope people check out my website. It's just my name, Brian, B-R-I-A-N, Peskin, P-S and parent, ESKIN.com all together. And you can read a lot of papers. You can see the books. But if you won't spend a few hours learning about how you work, God help you. God help you. Physicians don't know this. They don't even know what an EFA is. It's the exception. It stands for essential fatty acids. That's what these are, but it's not acid like it'll burn you. So I don't like the term, but that's the category the parent omega-6, parent omega-3, and all the oils are in. But physicians won't know the term. Most health professionals won't know the term. And if they do know the term, they think it's fish oil, and fish oil is not an essential fatty acid because your body makes it just fine from parent omega-3. They don't understand parents' derivatives. They don't understand long-chain metabolites. They don't understand eicosanoids. They don't understand an entire field of lipid science in the body because they don't care today. They just don't care. And unfortunately, that's where everything is. The cell membrane is actually the brain of the cell. I can rip out the nucleus of the cell. This has changed, but medical science, nobody gets updated for 20 years when it changes. Just like the oncogene, there isn't any. The inventor of the term oncogene came from MIT, where I went to school. He changed it, said it didn't pan out. There's not enough genetic mutations to have cancer. You need 6 or 7. We never see more than 2 or 3. So he was wrong, and he admitted it. One renegade cell is the book. But nobody sees this, and nobody says anything. It's just, oh, genetics, genetics, genetics. Genetics is where the money is. It's called epigenetic. That means your environment, what you eat. The genetic component is next to nil. It is less than 1%. And something has to turn the genetics on and off. And that's like the oils. If you have an adulterated oil, something goes off, that this is a problem, and your cell stays inflamed all the time. By the way, there was another paper that came out talking about your body is so smart it can tell if you're getting a screwed up oil in the cell membrane. The membrane stays inflamed all the time, low-grade inflammation. You talk to a doctor today, inflammation's everything. That's heart disease, that's cancer, it's diabetes, inflammation. Biggest anti-inflammatory, PGE1. you get these red oils. It is so foundational. And the great thing, John, is complementary with any modality, any medication anybody's taking for anything, because it's a food. It's the basis of our life. Mm. But the cell membrane is critical. If I rip out the nucleus, cell goes on for a month or two. If I rip out the cell membrane, 2 weeks, maybe 4 days, it's gone. So it's the cell membrane, it's the brain. Everything coming in and out of it, that's insulin sensitivity, that's insulin resistance, because the cell membrane won't let it in because the oil is screwed up. It's everything. It's the oxygen, it's everything.
And so many of these chronic conditions, they can be reversed through better...
Some can. Some are one way, unfortunately, blocked, like a type 1 diabetic.
Yes.
Which my wife is, and that's what got me into the entire field. I tried to reverse that, I can't.
No.
But no one else in the world could do it either, so I don't feel too terrible. But that's what I tried to do. Now I can make it where her insulin is much more sensitive with these oils.
Yes.
And the neuropathy is stopped, the retinopathy. She has no neuropathy. She has some retinopathy after 30 years of being a terribly controlled diabetic. I mean, terrible. And most are. They just don't listen and don't believe they're going to be in deep trouble. But the doctors can't believe her lack of neuropathy, which is feeling in the legs. If you have neuropathy, it feels like you got 1 million pinpricks in your feet all the time. And that's lack of oxygen. So her blood flow is fine.
Right.
But that's what got me in the field is diabetes. So I do a lot with diabetics. And in PEO solution, also 24-hour diet, if you care about diet or if you care about health. It's all the same stuff, but different focuses. Protein powder fruit smoothie combo is wonderful for the sweet tooth cravings, because all the diabetics, sweet tooth craving to infinity. Well, fruit, I found out from Dr. Rowan, is 1/4 to 1/2 of the blood glucose rise you would expect of, say, a piece of cake or ice cream or candy. And it's very interesting. I talk about it in the book, but all sugars are not equal, and fruit is very different. Now, a banana or pineapple, those are the two big exceptions. And dried fruit you can't have either because that's concentrated sugar. But blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, cantaloupe, watermelon, they're all fine. Peaches. You can see what's best for you, but if anybody is diabetic, you need to read this. And this is the biggest discovery in diabetes. And the doctors don't know this. They don't know there's a big difference with fruit compared to other sugars with the blood glucose. GLUT4 is the transporter of insulin in the bloodstream, but there's 10 others. You never hear about them. And that's where it goes. I was trying to figure out. And I'll tell you the story. Dr. Rowan told me this. I gave my wife 10 ounces of peaches. I calculated it. Her blood sugar should have gone up 150 points. It went up 12.
Gosh.
I have a very accurate meter. I'm going, the heck is this? How can it go up 12? I said, we got to do it tomorrow for whatever reason. And it started with high blood sugar to begin with, which is what you want, because that means it's going to take a lot for any insulin she does have to do anything. So it was a very good experiment. The next day I did the same damn thing. Went up 14, 12 and 14 is the same number within the accuracy of the meter. Should have been 150 points. So it was, my goodness. Then I started analyzing different fruits. I sent off the labs. It's very interesting. It's not the glucose and galactose and fructose. There's different sugars. There's milk sugars, there's fruit sugars. But I couldn't really figure out what particularly in a certain fruit was doing it, but I have some general things. Bottom line is fruit is different than candy. So fruit is nature. You have a sweet tooth. And there's even parent essential oils in fruit. So you can be a vegetarian. If you're a raw foods vegan, you can get all the oils. Dr. Rowan doesn't need a supplement, but he's not having any adulterated oils. And if you don't have to counteract, because your body has to counteract the bad ones and then put in the good ones. So it's a double thing. If you're not getting any bad ones to begin with, you don't need a heck of a lot of the good ones. So it's very interesting stuff. It's not for amateurs. PEO solution is hundreds of pages and it's very scientific. There's next to nothing for recipes. I don't do that garbage where you have a book and half of it's recipes. It's all science. And if you want to know how you work and what to do, you better demand the science. If you don't demand the science, again, God help you, because you are just going to get lied to. And what sounds good typically doesn't work. I'm an engineer. We have science all the time. Theories are all over the place. And there's something called quantum mechanics, the stupidest thing you ever heard of if you listen to it. But you can calculate with it, and it works. You have other stuff that sounds great, but it doesn't work. It happens all the time.
Yes, yes.
So you got to be very, very careful.
Now, the oils that are in, and fats that are in milk, cow's milk in particular.
Yeah, milk is horrible. Milk has what's in it, xanthine oxidase, which is like battery acid. So it scars the inside of the artery. We're not made to be drinking this stuff. Now, cream is a different story. You can have cream and you can have cheese. That's why I say the full fat. You don't want the homogenization that rips up these molecules of fat, makes it very, very small, and bypasses the stomach and gets right into the bloodstream and causes havoc. Again, man's doing this to get 1%, 2%, no percent fat milk. And we're just destroying what nature had. Again, this non-fat nonsense. You want full fat everything, and you want it organic. Good point.
Very interesting points that you make. Now, what is a properly calibrated oil? I've heard this term before.
Yeah, the properly calibrated oils are, we need at least 1 to 1 to 2.5 to 1 in favor of the parent omega-6. This is for a supplement. Remember I told you it's 11 to 1 as far as the ratios, but a lot of what we eat can be used. Half of what we're eating is okay. So that's giving you the 6 to 1. So we're not bad. It's giving you at least 6 to 1. It's not all bad that we eat. I don't want anybody thinking it's all bad. It's not. We'd be dead. But a lot of it's bad. Yes. So in a supplement, 2.5 to 1, 1 to 1, 2.5 to 1, it's a big range. Has to be organic. Has to be a multitude of oils like flax, pumpkin seed. It's better so people don't have a sensitivity to any one particular oil. Has to have some GLA, not a ton of it, but it has to have some, because if there's anybody with an impairment, remember I said diabetic, undergoing cancer treatment, alcoholic in the family background, doesn't mean you're an alcoholic, but if it's in your parents' genetics, that can play a small part. And it doesn't need to be a big one. Remember I said that everything isn't genetics, it's a small part, but a small part in this particular area can give you a problem. So it's easy to fix that with the GLA. That's the big things. And I talk disease prevention, so I can't give any brands, but if people want to send me an email, I can certainly tell you what I do and what I take. Yes. There are brands out there. There's not a lot of them. Most do it completely wrong, have backwards ratios. They don't know what they're doing with the science, or they just don't care. Virtually everybody today knows my name, knows my work. They won't acknowledge it either because they don't want the embarrassment of looking at their work compared to mine, or they're selling fish oil and I'm taking a lot of money out of their pocket and making them look like a jackass. So there's very specific reasons why people hate me. But my work has never been found wrong in 20 years. It has never been found fundamentally wrong. There's physicians around the world that utilize my work in their patients, and some very, very renowned physicians use this. And it works. So that's the most gratifying thing. It works, and it works on everybody because we're all the same machine. We're all much more alike than we are different. See, this is the great thing. We're all different. Well, that gives you an out why everything fails, doesn't it? Think about it. If I knew nothing, that's what I'd say. And then the other big one, everything in moderation. Well, if I know nothing, I'd say that too. But let me ask you this, a little arsenic in moderation? What are you, an idiot? You're dead. So no, everything not in moderation. You don't need that. Air in moderation, you're dead. You need insight, and that's the one thing people don't have today in medical science. I'm a hardcore medical scientist, but my try don't come from medicine. Or I'd be in the genetic thing like everybody else and completely missing it. They're not making the inroads in anything based on genetics. It's failing everywhere. And it has nothing to do with genetics. It's epigenetic, and that means the environment. So that means what you're eating.
Yes.
That's it. We're a superb machine. It's like you do a lot of work with rife and frequency. Well, if you have the cellular structural integrity, you can work with it. But if you have a cell that's a mess, I don't care what you do. How are you going to fix anything? It makes it very, very hard for somebody trying to help somebody. So these oils are just fundamental to anybody. If you don't have this fixed, you're never going to be where you need to be. I mean, and most people, unfortunately today, they don't know what feeling good should be. They don't have a clue. How would you know if you feel like garbage all the time? And they do. I mean, you should be able to run like a machine, like a human Ferrari, 18 hours a day. Most people can't run 18 minutes. They're exhausted. They don't have laser focus. They can't think. I mean, it's tragic. Nobody can think today in America. It's horrible. Horrible. You ask them a question, they just look at you. They have no memory. You go in, you go to Starbucks or something, you tell them you want something, there's 3 components. They'll forget the third one out of the 3. They don't have a 10-second attention span. And this is all physiologic. It's not their fault. It's all physiologic in the brain. They don't have the blood flow. Remember, PGE1 is the transporter. And they don't have the nutrient flow, and they don't have the oxygen flow. Right. And it's just, you just don't work. What do you expect? Don't blame nature. Don't say it's a genetic defect. It's our defect. We thought we were smarter than nature, screwing up the food. And if you don't figure this out and understand how to fix it, you're in trouble. And that's why anybody hitting 60 today, God help them if they don't know this.
I really enjoy talking to you because you're talking about educating yourself. And this is what this program is all about.
I know it is.
You've done your research as well.
Yeah. Look at a few episodes, of course. Yeah. Well, we know more about how our car works than how we work. I get people, I don't have cancer. One of my first books was called The Hidden Story of Cancer. It's available PDF, but not print anymore because I wanted to concentrate on health instead of cancer. Sure. But it's a seminal book on why you get cancer. It's all based on Otto Warburg's work, why you get cancer and how to prevent it. It's not me saying it, it's doctors around the world saying it's a masterpiece. And about 40,000 copies were sold with no advertising. The doctors don't know this. They just don't know any of it. And, I'm at the biggest cancer center in the world, MD Anderson's here, and I would talk to the oncologists and mention Warburg. They just look at me, who? Don't have a clue. It's just tragic. So you get some that care and some, but in fairness to physicians, they're so overworked. People are so sick. When they're out of the office and out of the clinic seeing patients, just leave me the hell alone. I'm fried, I'm exhausted. The last thing I want to do is read something more medical. They just don't want to. And I can't blame them. But if you don't understand this stuff yourself, you're going to be in trouble because you can't expect the doctor to know it. It's not fair.
It's not just that, Brian. A point that you made earlier, they're not building on the experiences of what a doctor has learned 20 years ago. And they're not building and building. They're just sort of coming, hey, I've discovered this. Wow, let's,
Yeah, so they forget the past. They act like it doesn't exist. It's like everything's genetics. Well, what changed the genes? Genes don't change in a 50 or 60 or 100-year period. They just don't. And if they change the way you're saying, we'd all be dead. And well, there's I just went to a conference on Alzheimer's last Friday. Yes. Methodist Hospital. Big conference. People all over the world there. Oh, there's 110 genes in Alzheimer's that have changed. But we don't know what to do with them. Because they don't matter. It's an effect, not a cause. Here's an example. I burn your arm up with a blowtorch. You think the DNA would change? Of course it would. I burned your arm of all the DNA. But the DNA changed as a result of me burning up your arm. The DNA didn't change and then I burned up your arm. They've got it backwards. The DNA changes as a result of the problem, not causing the problem. This is how bad it is, and this is why they get nowhere. They put in a gene that's supposed to work, and 99% of the time it doesn't work. So that proves it right there, their failure rate, and then it messes up things. It's horrible what they do. Yeah. It's not genetic. That's the bottom line. Maybe 1% of the diseases, if that, are really a genetic thing. Where and to be genetic, it has to be right out of the womb. can't manifest itself 20 years later. How the hell is that genetic? It's right out of the womb. Genetic is your eye color. That doesn't change after you're born.
No.
That kind of stuff. You know, something that doesn't change, you're born with, by definition, is genetic. If it manifests 20 years later, that's insane. Question should be, well, what made it? Why was it 20 years before this manifested itself?
Yeah, yeah.
And what'd you do differently? You obviously did something differently 20 to get it to change. These questions are never asked.
It must have been a colorful.
A lot of questions. So, I mean, you see the books in back of me. I've read them all. I don't just have books thrown in the bookcase. I read them.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of books there, and a lot of them are medical.
I can imagine this Alzheimer's meeting. You'd be sticking your hand up. No, I object. No, that's not wrong. No, sorry, that's not right. And I know that's not how it happens.
Well, I ask them questions they typically can't answer, or they go, "That's a very, very good question." They only say that to me, I had one that said that, you know, I really liked your questions. They were really, really good. You can say it to anybody else.
Before we go, I want to ask one question. Now, you have mentioned that that's, you know, we're spooky and we treat people that are sick with the frequencies. Now, you get a lot of people that have got cancer. In your opinion, if someone has, you know, obviously there's, you know, thousands of different types of cancers, but the use of parent omega-6 essential oils.
With 3, you need them both. You need the parent omega-6, the parent omega-3, and the GLA. So you need, that's the properly formulated oil.
Yes.
So you need a combination of it. Is it mainly the 6 or in preponderance of the 6? Yes, but you don't want to miss the other 2.
Okay.
If you have cancer, you need every possible advantage because you got a problem.
Yes. Okay, well, the
can be reversed,
pardon?
Can be reversed.
It can be reversed.
Of course.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's, you've answered before I've asked the question. You're a sharp man.
Well, here's the thing. You have a benign tumor and then you have a fully cancerous tumor. And I always go, what the heck is the difference between the two?
Yeah.
And before I read Dr. Warburg's answer, there is an answer. I would read the pathologist's reports and look up the scientific papers. I never get an intelligent answer. I don't even know if it's cancer. Cancer is very stupid. So when I see these things like we're outsmarting cancer, well, it's a moron. Does that tell me about you? Cancer is like a yeast grows. It's running on sugar like a yeast. It's called anaerobic fermentation, meaning without oxygen. So oxygen makes a life form intelligent. You take away the oxygen, you got a moron. Oh, what does yeast do? It just grows and grows and grows. Gee, isn't that what a cancer cell does? Has no brain, it just keeps growing. Well, that's pretty much what a yeast does.
Right.
So everything is tied to oxygen. So if you have a benign tumor and it's not converted to running on no oxygen in the majority, you can fix that by putting in the parent omega-6, parent omega-3 in the cell membrane, and it'll start working. Yes. Or you can kill that and make every cell around it fully functional so it's not going to spread, not metastasize. 90%, 95% of cancers, if they don't metastasize, are no issue at all unless they're in a life-maintaining area, like in the cerebellum or something. If it was a tumor going to shut it down, of course you die. But other than that, it doesn't do anything. It's just a tumor. So a benign tumor is nothing. And that's the key. You can keep that tumor benign forever with these oils. So it's very satisfying and thrilling. We get things around the world, prostate cancer, all kinds of cancer. You can reverse them. Now, much easier stage 1 or 2 than a stage 4. Yes. Obviously, if you have a fire and you burn down 3/4 of the house, how do I bring it back? Really hard. But if I only have 10% of the house burned down, I can smash it with water and easy to rebuild. Same thing with cancer.
Yes. Fantastic. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on our show. It's been amazing, absolutely amazing.
I hope people check out my website, brianpeskin.com, just my name together with a .com there. And there's a lot of free stuff. You don't have to buy a book. I don't sell supplements. Again, I'm a medical scientist. You can ask me what I use, what I do. But I hope people will get one of the books because I'm about educating people with science. And then you can decide what kind of supplement you may need if you think you need it based on what you read. But I want you understanding first, not taking stuff. But it's been a pleasure, Don. Thank you very much for having me.
We'll put links on the video when you publish onto our video channels. Thank you so much, Brian, once again, and thank you viewers for watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.